Good morning, y'all. Welcome to Coffee with Connect. We get together on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9:30. We get into God's Word together, and we have our coffee together. And I've got a new mug that I got from Walt Disney World as I got the chance to go to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge for the first time, and it was awesome. And so I had to get a mug from Black Spire Outpost to use not only on Coffee with Connect, but just to use in life, because that was an awesome experience for me. And so it even says the planet Batuu on the back, and it was a super cool moment and super cool time to be there, and I'll never forget it. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to continue going through 1 Peter chapter 4. As we have finished 1 Peter chapter 3. If you're just joining us maybe for the first time, we've been going through 1 Peter a verse at a time, sequentially. Don't always do things like that, but here on Coffee with Connect, we like to change it up occasionally. And so we're going through the book, and we've only got 2 chapters left as we've completed chapter 3, and now we're starting chapter 4. And as we know, 1 Peter is written to everyone in the family of faith, and Peter is known as the apostle of hope, and he continues that theme throughout. But in this particular chapter, he starts by giving us some challenges here, and he's laid out some things, and as we're going to see now, he's saying, now this is what you do with it. So chapter 4, right at the very beginning, we're going to be looking at verses 1 through 3. I'm in the NLT. It says this: "So then, since Christ suffered physical pain, you must arm yourselves with the same attitude he had, and be ready to suffer too. For if you've suffered physically for Christ, you have finished with sin. You won't spend the rest of your lives chasing your own desires, but you'll be anxious to do the will of God. You have had enough in the past of the evil things that godless people enjoy, their immorality and lust, their feasting and drunkenness and wild parties, and their terrible worship of idols." So chapter 3 ends with telling us to have a clean, confident conscience filled with hope as followers of Jesus, not because of what we've done, right, but because of what Jesus did to wash away the sin that the enemy was using to grip us. And that's where we ended the last episode of this. And so as we start into chapter 4, Peter starts with, "So then," other translations it says "therefore," so meaning, okay, considering everything that I've talked about before, or I've said all of that to say this, and then he goes into it. And he basically starts by saying this isn't going to be easy. This isn't going to be easy. Christ suffered, and so will you. So be ready for it. And I love how practical Peter is. I love how much of a realist he is in all of this. He's not mincing words, and he's not giving a false hope, which I very much appreciate. He says, "For if you have suffered physically for Christ, you have finished with sin." So as we're thinking about what he's writing here, it doesn't mean that you're sinless, right? It doesn't mean that you're sinless, but that your relationship with sin, the domination of it over your life, it's taken a back seat, is more of a better way to look at it, because of the power of Jesus, your relationship with him, that you've made the necessary sacrifices to get to that point, and that you have sacrificed to get to that point. And, you know, a lot of us, we feel defeated in our battle against sin and temptation. And a lot of times the reason is because we refuse to sacrifice anything. We feel defeated because we refuse to sacrifice anything in the battle. To win the battle, there's going to have to be some sacrifices. Some things are going to have to be sacrificed. We only want victory if it comes easy. And Jesus calls us to have the kind of attitude that would sacrifice in the battle against sin, just as he did. He's never asking us to do anything that he wasn't willing to do himself or did do. And then it says you have to You have had enough in the past of the evil things that godless people enjoy, their immorality, their lust, their feasting, their drunkenness, their wild parties, a terrible worship of idols. Listen, have you had enough of that garbage? Because if you're still struggling with sin and you're still leaning into those kinds of things, into that garbage, don't be surprised to find yourself feeling defeated and not in a place of victory. Because if you've had enough of that garbage and you know firsthand that it gets you nowhere and it leaves you with nothing. And that is the opposite of Jesus. Jesus gets you somewhere and leaves you with everything that matters, with the things that matter the most. So what's God saying to you? What can you write down? Our 5-step process, right? Pray, read, think, write. We've prayed, I hope. We've read, thought about what we've read. There's a lot to think about in these 3 verses. What can you write down that's standing out to you? What's God saying to you? I have a feeling he's hitting somebody right between the eyes right now. So write that down. And then what do we do with that? Our action step. See, Peter realized that we've all spent enough time living in this world. We're all called to live like Christians. And he realized that spending that time in this world trying to live the other way gets you nowhere. And it's huge, foolish waste of time for Christians to live like the world. It's a waste of our time. It's a waste of our time. And we have to simply stop being, double-minded, a word that the scriptures use. Start living as followers of Christ. And whatever that means. And so maybe there's some sacrifices that you need to make. Maybe there's some things you're not willing to put down. Some things you're not willing to walk away from and then wondering why you're defeated. Maybe that's your action step. Maybe you need to take a good, hard look at what you need to put down and walk away from. And it's not easy. And suffering is going to happen, maybe even because of it. But as Peter's saying, he's calling us to have the same attitude as Christ. So let's have the same attitude as him, because enough is enough. And Jesus is more than enough. So thanks for joining me. Hope that you'll like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody that needs it. And join me again here next time so we can have our coffee and connect to Christ, community, purpose, and God's word together.